What's up guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Beth and I am so excited to share this video with you guys because I am going to be sharing some of the baby names that we love but very likely won't be using for this baby boy. The interesting thing is that this baby is actually not currently named yet. We've narrowed it down to 3 and I think out of the 3 there's 2 that would be like our top picks, and then even from there is 1 that we are really strongly leaning towards, but my husband and I think that we're going to actually like officially decide when we see the baby and when he's here. So any of these could technically be fair game, but I'm not going to include the top 3 on this list just in case. I am currently 30 weeks pregnant with baby boy. He's doing well, I'm doing well. I cannot even believe how fast this pregnancy has flown. I have been collecting baby boy names for years now. I have a running list on my phone, some names that were added more recently, some that I've had on here for years, but this is a much shorter list than I had for baby girls. And I feel like it's because baby boy names in general are just a little bit harder. When you name a baby girl, you want a name that's like really cute for the baby, but then also cute as they grow older, and it can just be like feminine and pretty throughout their whole life. But with a boy, if you name them that's something that's like really cute and trendy when they're a baby or a toddler, they have to like grow up and be a full grown man with that name. Or like the test that Jared and I have been using is like what it's gonna sound like for that person to like do their vows on their wedding day and have to like use their full name, and whether or not it sounds ridiculous is like how we remove a name from our list. So with all that being said, these names are more on like the vintage and classic side of things. So I feel like they do work really, really well for a baby, a toddler, a teenager, but then also eventually a grown man. The first name that I have on my list is Ellis. I have always really loved the name Ellis as a first name, but also as a middle name. I would actually be surprised if at some point, like depending on how many baby boys we have, we didn't end up using this in some way, shape, or form, even if just for a middle name. But I just think it's such like a beautiful and handsome name. I also really love that it gives you the nickname Eli, because I feel like Eli is just such a strong name and nickname. I don't have Elijah on my list, but I love any kind of variation of Eli that gives you that Eli nickname because I think it is such a lovely name. And that brings me into my second name, which is actually Elias. I think that Jared and I were spinning names off of each other, and Ellis was one of the ones I said out loud, and I was like, what about Elias? And I think that that one is also really nice. It almost sounds like a stronger sounding version of the name Ellis, and so I added that to the list. It didn't get chosen for this time, but it's still a beautiful name. The next name that I have on my list is Gray. I don't think Jared is so much on board with it because he thinks it's like literally for him, he can't just remove the color gray from thinking about it and like associate it with a person. But I think that this is really nice. I've waffled back and forth on whether I think like Grayson is better, and I know that there's different variations of that, but I think even just like Gray on its own is just a strong sounding name. The next name that I have on my list is Finn. My husband actually really likes this one, but for myself, it's one of the names that didn't pass the test of like the grown man thing. I know that he really likes this one because he has Irish roots, and so it would be fun to kind of bring that element into the name of our children as well. But Finn is honestly such a cute name, and I think that it works really well for like babies and toddlers. I just can't personally get behind it like beyond the teenager kind of stage of life, but it's still a really cute name. So this next name is honestly like one of my all-time favorite like top baby boy names. I think it works so well with the name that we have for our daughter, but my husband isn't 100% behind it, and that is Henry. But I like it spelled with an I, so almost like the French version, which is more like Henri. But I wouldn't pronounce it like that. I would still pronounce it as Henry and just spell it with an I, which I don't know, maybe that would be annoying for them as they're growing up and getting their name spelled wrong all the time. But I just think that Henry is such a beautiful name. It's so classic. It just sounds like so strong to me. And I also obviously love that the French version and spelling of that would go very well with Vivian, but we decided that we're not gonna pigeonhole ourselves into like the French theme with everything. We're just gonna stick with like classic, really timeless names, and I think that's how all of the names of our kids will tie together. So Henry has been taken off the list for now, but I will live vicariously through whoever chooses to name their baby boy this in my place. So the next name that I have on my list is Beau, but instead of spelling it like B-O, spelling it like B-E-A-U. I actually just had one of my cousins name her child this, so that kind of took it off of my list. I feel like it kind of depends like how close you are to certain people when it comes to like name sharing and things like that, because otherwise it can get kind of weird. But we weren't going to also name our child Beau, so that one has been taken off the list. The next name on my list is Hastings. I feel like this is a very just like classic and handsome and also like romantic sounding name. This is total main character vibes. I think it's really, really beautiful. I honestly don't know why this one is not one that we're going to be using. I don't think my husband loved it. I think that like we kind of agreed that it gave a little bit too much of like a rich kind of like trust fund baby vibe, so we didn't want to go too far down that route, but I think it is still a really beautiful name, and it's kind of similar to the next name that we took off of our list for the same reason as Hastings, and that is Jennings. I think that again it sounds like very classic, like old-timey, but it also sounds like old money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Jared and I kept saying like we can't get the thought of like a white guy with boat shoes out of our mind, and so we took both of those names off the list. The next name on this list is Levi. Levi is a name that I have loved for years. I think it's so lovely, so classic. Again, this is one of those ones that one of our friends just named their baby, and you guys, I'm nervous because I am now pregnant again with like probably 7 or 8 of my friends, and we are all having baby boys. So most of us, I think, are keeping the name a secret, but we keep like sharing, some of us, like the first letter to be like, is it starting with this? To try and like make sure that we're not all going to name our child the same thing. But Levi has been used recently, and we also have a friend in our life that is named Levi, so I feel like it would be kind of weird to have like a little Levi Jr. running around, but Levi is a very cute name. The next name on this list is one that like honestly, if we have enough baby boys, we probably will use eventually, because Jared and I both just agree that we love it, and that is Jack. I think it's such a great name. It's so classic. It stands the test of time, sounds strong, but I also like that the meaning of it is God is gracious. And I don't know the meanings of all of these ones, but I have heard that in the past, and I think that that is really special and sweet. So Jack may be one that we'll come back to eventually. The next name that I have here is Miles. Again, this is just like a very classic and just old-timey name. I feel like this one specifically is going to become very popular in the next couple of years, especially with Miles Teller being in the new Top Gun movie and all of the women in the world just like obsessing. So I'm not naming my child that for that reason, but I do feel like it is going to become like a very popular name in the next few years. The next name is James. I love James. I think it's a really beautiful and classic name. Again, very similar to Jack. You cannot go wrong with this. I've obviously met a lot of people named James in my life, but I don't know, they've all been sweet and lovely, and even though you can't tie like someone that you know to every name because that would just wipe out every name, I really do think that this is a beautiful name, and I actually do love it like gender neutral as well. I've heard it used for girls, I've heard it used as like girl middle names, and so I don't know. Again, depending on how many kids we have, we could come back to that, could come back to it as a middle name. I just think it's really lovely. The next name that I have on here is Haze. I've added this in more recent years. I think it's really, really sweet. It has Old English roots. I think also potentially Irish roots as well, which works really well for our background. But I also just feel like it's one of those names that everyone is always gonna think that their name is like H-A-Z-E every time they pronounce it over the phone or at Starbucks or whatever. So just to save the complication of that, I've taken it off of the list. And then the next name that I have is also one that I've added more recently, and that is Wild. Wild is also an Old English name, and it actually means someone that is a leader, which I love for a boy. I think it's really awesome. Now that I'm reading this out loud again, I'm like, we should add that back into the short list because I really like the name Wild. I just haven't sat with it for that long. I honestly think I may have added this in the last couple weeks, so may need to check back in with Jared on that, but it's a name that is being used a little bit more frequently right now. I've just like kind of heard of it in the last little bit, and it kind of fits in with this whole like last name as first name kind of thing that is happening with baby boys specifically, and I think that's kind of cool. So Wild is on the won't be using list for now, but maybe not forever. Okay, so I have two more to share with you guys. The next one is Theo, short for Theodore. I think this is such a sweet name. I think part of it is the fact that we have really, really good friends that have a son named Theo, and he is the sweetest little boy ever. So it just like colors my just like view of the name Theo and how much I like it, but I honestly think it's such a classic, beautiful name, works so well for a baby, a toddler, a man, so really, really love that name. And then the last name that I have on my list is Beckham. I feel like Beckham is the first time that I heard a traditionally like known of last name be used as a first name. That was like 4 or 5 years ago, and I thought that that was really, really cool. I also really like the nickname Beck. I like that it can be gender neutral. You can use it for a girl, but also for a boy, and Beckham is just, I don't know, sounds like a really cute boy name, so I've always had that on the list as well. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing some of the baby names that we love but won't be using maybe for this baby. I feel like after going through this list, there's a couple that I'm gonna need to just come back to with Jared and be like, are we sure that we want to take this off of the list? But obviously we have time to figure it out, and I don't know, it's just fun to name a baby, but it's also weighty at the same time. So as much as I've loved like going through like those apps where you can swipe and see different name ideas and Googling like different variations of names and what they mean and all of that, it has also just been like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna be their name forever. So you wanna like do a good job with it and feel confident in it. But at the same time, it is also just like a fun thing to get inspiration and ideas, and whatever you name your child, I feel like they just grow into that name as well, and all kind of like associations that you would have had with maybe people that you've met that have had that name before just go away and get replaced by this human being that you created and you love, and now that's their name. So I don't know, I'm sure we'll figure it out and land on something that we absolutely love. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. It really does mean the world to me every time that you guys watch, and I would love if you could give it a thumbs up before you head out today. But also feel free to subscribe if you want to just see more baby pregnancy related videos like this. So until my next video, I love you guys, I'm praying for you guys, and I will see you soon.